Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. My name is Nick, who has run out of English complimentary words. And with me, as always, is the Nabe Bert.
Nabe! Ooh, Nababy. Ooh, that sounds fancy.
Yeah, that's Egyptian for intelligent.
Man, you're really stretching the confounds of this bad boy.
I'm having to dip into other languages now because we've recorded enough episodes that it's getting slim pickings.
And we're still on season 1 or season 2 technically. We're only on season 2, Nick. What happens on season 12?
On season 12? I'm gonna start insulting. I have no choice.
Oh man, that's a rough city right there, Nick.
I'll think of something. That's a future Nick problem. He can deal with that.
Problem. See, this is why I don't start new things. If I don't start new things, I don't have any problems.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Getting into these later episodes, I'm kind of like, I wish I hadn't started this. But
see how that is? That's funny how that works.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the whole mixer situation I got going on. Like I've had to turn into almost like a sound technician to do a podcast, right? It's like, what?
I know. Well, the setup's changed everything.
There's nothing that's the same. In fact, we started implementing, I'm curious how this is going to look, the video recording off of Riverside last podcast. So if you've seen it and it looks better, that's why. If it looks the same, it means it didn't work and we went with the Riverside. I won't know. Won't know until I edit it, but I guess we'll find out at that point.
That's right.
Yeah, we're keeping things interesting.
We got to innovate, though.
Got to innovate. By the way, what did you say the word was again? One more time? Nineveh?
Nabe.
Nabe. Listen, I was close. Nabe?
Oh, Nabe. With a B. Yeah.
Sounds like Nubby.
Nubby Bert. No, it's Nabe.
Oh, man. That's a wild word right there, Nick. I like it.
You know what made me think to use an Egyptian word?
What's that?
I was thinking way back at the Seti episode, and because I think about that from time to time, I don't know why, and I said, that's where I'll start.
It's addictive. Listen, some of these stories that we bring, they get trapped in your brain, just like this one. For anyone that doesn't know, this is my week. Nick doesn't know what this episode is. Now, my guess is there's a 90% chance that Nick will know this story. In addition to that,
we'll see.
If Nick does not know this story, this is going to be one heck of a ride. I'm going to tell you, this will be a two-parter. Guaranteed two-parter. No way around it.
I like those, and people have been asking.
There has been people that's like, man, I miss when y'all did two-parters. Well, here you go. For those that don't like two-parters, listen, argue with the people that does like them. I don't know what to tell you.
I think the people who like them and don't like them are the same people, and it just depends on what's happening at the time, right?
I think you're right.
I know some of them are the same. I know some of them are the same.
I do too. Mom and Dad. Well, Nick, I got to keep us somewhat on pace. Do you want to?
Oh, yeah.
And we're going right into the story. Just FYI, we're going right into the story at the very beginning. And this is going to be a roller coaster ride at 65 miles an hour the whole entire time.
I can't wait. And feel free to rein me in because I know I'm like a wandering cat. I get off on tangents a lot.
Well, we're going to have some tangents on this one. I can assure you, just based on the subject matter.
Oh, okay. I am ready. I am willing to absorb this knowledge.
It was February 21st, 1997. As the late afternoon sun filtered through his office windows, famed radio personality Art Bell was engrossed in preparations for that evening's coast-to-coast AM show. This late-night radio talk show, a staple for millions of listeners, often delved into the realms of the paranormal and conspiracy theories, leaving its audience guessing where each episode would lead. On that particular Friday, as Art answered calls from his many listeners, he was unaware that the night ahead would etch itself into the annals of radio history as one of his most intriguing and unforgettable broadcasts. Amidst his routine, a fax arrived, catching Art's attention. The message, sent by a man named Mel Waters, read, "Dear Art, I'm writing to you to see if I can get some help from you or your vast listening audience. I live in rural eastern Washington, near the Menashtash Ridge. On our property, there is a hole." As Art continued to peruse the fax, he found himself utterly engrossed in the tale Mel was sharing. The mysterious story outlined within the message was compelling enough that Mel hoped Art might read a portion of it on air, seeking assistance from the show's vast, resourceful audience. However, Art saw more potential in Mel's story than just a brief on-air mention. Intrigued by the mysterious hole on Mel's property, Art decided to reach out to him directly. He proposed that Mel join him on air that very night, aiming to uncover the truth behind what would soon be known to listeners far and wide as Mel's Hole.
Here he is from, I don't know where he is right now, Mel Waters. Mel, welcome to the program.
I'm here in the Pacific Northwest.
Somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
The hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now, and, the hole has been there since we've been there. It's been there since the previous owner was there, and the previous owner there was quite elderly. He was there for a good 30, 40 years before we moved in.
And so there's been a thing of throwing stuff down this hole for a long time.
It's been going on for as long as the hole has been there, I assume. We take all of our trash, rubbish, anything we have that we have to get rid of, we take it, throw it in the hole. Everyone's throwing their stuff in the hole. The people from around there throw all the stuff in the hole. I mean, it's just been going on for a long time. Well, I got this thinking one day, how come this hole is not filling up? It must be an awfully deep hole.
As soon as I heard that Art Bell music, I got excited. I'm like, yeah. But then I started thinking, I don't know if Bert realizes the amount of Art Bell that I've listened to. Like, am I going to know this story, or is it going to be lost in the 75% of my brain that's filled up with Art Bell stories? But as soon as I heard Mel,
there's no way that nobody that's listened to Art Bell does not know the story of Mel.
Right. Yeah, and anyone who doesn't know the title of this podcast is probably going to be real funny. Mel's Hole.
Yeah. The funny part is I've actually got, because I have to license all the music for our podcast. Because let's be honest, sometimes I forget to license the first song when I'm creating the podcast. So I always have to put the name in there. So the name of this podcast, which y'all are going to know, obviously, because you clicked on it, and we're in the past. We're old, Nick and Bert. He's old back then. Now we're older. This one is called, and I've got it right here. Let me scroll up to it. Like the Star Wars or something. I believe I called it Mel's Hole, the Endless Enigma, or I may have used the Bottomless Mystery Exploring Mel's Hole. One of the two. I can't remember which one I used.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it's real funny how he talks about everyone throwing their garbage in it and stuff.
Yes.
And we've got all kinds of new garbage separation laws here. Like, it's just insane. I have to have like at least 4 garbage bins and a compost one, and like the recycling's gotten real crazy. Everyone hates it, and I'm just thinking, man, I need to find a bottomless pit somewhere I can just launch my garbage into.
You just gotta find a hole, Nick.
I know, but one where I can't get caught. I don't want to be caught either, so it's got to be bottomless.
It's a double-edged sword. Well, this is an interesting story. I think that I don't know how well versed you are with the entire story. Do you know?
I have listened to a lot of it. I do know a lot of it, but where you're going to get me is what I often do is put on Art Bell's episodes as I'm going to sleep. So I'll fall asleep during parts and wake up. So I've got bits and pieces, I think.
Well, here's what's tricky, and this is why I say this. He called into Art Bell 5 times.
Right. Yep,
so
I do recall that.
The question is, have you heard all 5? Have you heard bits and pieces of a few of them? That's where it gets tricky. And the last one is really where the meat and potatoes is.
Right. I've listened to parts of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I probably heard all of the first one and then bits and pieces of the other ones. And I think that Art Bell would sometimes contact him as well. Like it wasn't just him contacted, and Art took a particular interest in this one.
Well, he was a huge skeptic in the very beginning.
Right.
And you can actually hear that in Art's voice. Now, for this podcast, I did not use a lot of Art Bell's broadcast. The reason for that is not because I was trying to hide anything, but with the length of this narration, I'm like, I need this to be very precise and very quick, and we need to get the story moving because this is a lot. This is a lot, boys and girls. Like I said, it's going to be a two-parter for sure.
Another thought I had on the throwing crap in the hole that everyone's been doing is, if it indeed is not bottomless, it sucks that no one will ever be able to explore it because it's going to be so full of garbage.
Oh, yeah.
That we'll never be able to find out what actually was down in the hole.
Oh, for sure. They've been throwing stuff in there for decades. Literal decades.
Like 40 years at that point.
Correct.
That we know about.
Correct.
And this was probably 20 years ago, too.
Oh, yeah.
If I had to guess.
1997, I think, was what... actually, I can tell you. This call happened... Let me go to my handy-dandy notes right here.
And this is the first call, too, right?
Yep, we're going in chronological order from call 1 to call 5. That kills a little bit of the pizzazz because there's a couple of times where I'm like, and then he disappears. Well, now y'all know he comes back. Okay. Okay.
The same thing happened with Madman Markham.
That's true.
He disappears and returns. That's
exactly what happens with this guy. I believe this is 1997. I thought I had it in my notes, but apparently I do not.
Okay, so it is quite some time ago. We're talking almost 30 years.
For sure.
And when the call happened, it was 34 years that he knew about people throwing stuff in there.
Well, even further than that as we dig into the story.
Right. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a lot of garbage in there. Let's just say that.
A lot of garbage in there. Now, some interesting things, just playing back on what was actually said so that the listeners can kind of keep up. In the narration, it was talking about Mel was an avid fisherman. Okay.
Right.
What he was doing was using fishing line because that's what he had an abundance of, obviously, as a fisherman.
Yeah.
And he was buying it in 5,000 yard spools. And he was dropping it and then dropping it. He thought that it would just hit the bottom after the first spool.
Right.
It just kept moving. So that's kind of where the story kind of started out. He also tied, I think it was a 1 pound weight. It was a triangle weight, so it wouldn't catch on anything. And Mel went through a lot. He went through a lot to try to figure all this out.
And people should keep in mind that this is fishing line, and it's probably meant for the ocean if you're talking 5,000 feet of it or whatever.
Well, and he was a shark fisherman.
Right. So this is definitely ocean then.
Yeah.
And he's expelling more line than would probably reach the deepest parts of the ocean. I think once we get, I know we're getting ahead probably again, but this hole seems to be deeper than the deepest parts of the ocean that we know about.
Facts. One interesting thing is dogs would never go near the hole, and birds would avoid flying over top the hole. So that's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's interesting. Dogs I can understand.
Yeah.
The birds, I wouldn't think they'd care at all.
He said that a bird would not fly over top of it, and I think there's a reason for that, which we're quite a few segments away from that. But there's a lot more going on to the hole than just garbage, is what we'll say.
Yeah. I would throw a bird over the hole and see what
just to happens. See what happens.
Maybe he does. Yeah.
I mean,
like I catch a bird and I huck it over the hole and see if it anything happens.
Well, I thought it was funny.
PETA.
He did tie. Yeah, we ain't scared of PETA. He tied a pack of lifesavers, the candy, also to the end because he wanted to see if it hit water. And it's still down there. So what he's doing is after he hits 5,000 yards, he ties it to another one, and then he starts releasing another 5,000.
Right.
So he just keeps on going down and down and down. And he wants to see how far it is until it hits water. So that's always the goal. But now, since we kind of know what this thing is, Nick, do you want to advance a little bit to the next and kind of see what we got going on and talk about it?
I do, because I also want to look up something while I'm listening. So this is the perfect opportunity.
Later that Friday evening, Art Bell introduced Mel Waters to his audience, and Mel began to unravel his mysterious tale. He started by clarifying that he wasn't calling from the property where the mysterious hole was located. A recent snowstorm had wreaked havoc in the area surrounding Ellensburg, Washington, causing several of the already dilapidated buildings on Mel's land to collapse under the weight of the snow. For now, Mel was staying somewhere in Ellensburg, and from there, he made his call. He explained that he had owned this land for a few years, and on it, there existed a hole measuring 9 feet and 9 inches across. Surrounding the hole was a 3-foot-high retaining wall, giving it the appearance of a well, though it was anything but. This wall extended down about 15 feet before transitioning into dirt and soil, and eventually rock further down. Using powerful halogen lights, Mel could see these layers, but even these lights failed to illuminate the bottom. This hole seemed to have been a fixture on the property for an indeterminate length of time. Mel wasn't alarmed when he discovered his neighbors were using the hole as a dumping ground, driving up in the evenings to dispose of their rubbish. Adopting the local tradition, he too began discarding anything he no longer needed into the hole. Initially concerned about potential environmental impact, Mel conducted regular water tests, which always came back pristine. It seemed whatever lay at the bottom was solid and impermeable. However, Mel soon noticed something weird. No matter how much rubbish was thrown in, the hole never filled up. More intriguingly, there was never any sound from the objects hitting the bottom. No echo when he shouted into it. No splash when rubbish was dropped. Not even when he hurled an entire fridge and a television. This silence set his mind racing. Just how deep was this hole that it swallowed everything without a trace? Being an avid fisherman, Mel had plenty of fishing line at his disposal.
So I had a couple of huge fishing reels, went out there and started letting the line down. I figure after one...
Did you weight the line?
Oh, yeah. There's in fact, the original line is still down there. I've just been adding to the line. There's a 1 pound weight at the bottom of it.
1 pound weight, all
1
right.
pound weight. It's a triangular 1 pound weight. You know, there seems to be... It's not resting against anything at this point here, and it continues to go down freely.
Well, you've got miles and miles of...
Yeah, I think a fair number of miles, though.
Well, 5,280 feet is a mile, so you really think you've got 80,000?
Yes, yeah, I get line in 5,000-yard spools, and so I've gone through that many.
To check if water might be present at that depth, Mel tied a pack of Lifesavers candies to the line, thinking they would dissolve if submerged. But when he reeled it back up, they were untouched. Determined to plumb the depths, Mel began buying reels of fishing line and 5,000-yard spools, attaching them to the initial piece that remained in the hole. He often brought his dogs along, but they would never go near the hole, digging their paws into the ground and refusing to budge if he tried to lead them close. Neighbors reported the same behavior with their dogs, and birds avoided flying over or perching near it. Mel continued his efforts, constructing a rig over the hole to better manage the ever-lengthening line as it descended into the mysterious depths below.
Ooh, that's wild.
That's wild.
So, yeah, I wanted to check something while we were on that segment, so I did. You use yards, we use meters. They're almost 1-to-1, very close to 1-to-1.
Yep.
And he was getting it in 5,000-yard spools. Well, the average depth of the ocean is only 3,682 meters, which is about the same amount of yards. That's the average depth of the ocean.
Yep.
The very deepest part of the ocean, the entire ocean, very deepest part, is only 10,935 meters. So 2 of those spools, and we know that he's used more than that, he's at the deepest part of the ocean. So this hole is deeper than the deepest part of the ocean, way below sea level, with no water in it at all yet.
Now,
how crazy is that?
We didn't cover this anywhere else in this section, but he said, this is what he says.
Right.
He put a rig over the hole so that the line would go straight down the center of the hole.
Yep.
And he's put 80,000 yards of fishing line down that hole.
Right.
And it's not touched bottom.
So that's almost 8 times the depth of the deepest part of the ocean, which is so deep that we don't even know a lot about it.
Correct.
That is crazy.
How absurd is that to think about?
This is that bottomless pit in video games that we were always scared of as kids.
That is true. Listen, that is absolutely, positively, without a doubt, the truth. If for all of us glorious American folk, because most of us is not going to be able to appreciate what this is. If I go 80,000 yards to miles, that would equal, okay, well, it's a little bit slower because it's doing all these calculations. It would equivalent to 45 miles down.
That's think about it this way, because I know in America you like to do visual comparisons a lot too.
Yes.
Get in your car and drive that distance, and wherever your house is from where you end up is the lip of the hole.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're at that distance. That's crazy.
45 miles. For anyone that doesn't know, it's 60 miles an hour. That's 45 minutes of constant driving.
Right.
And it's over that. It's 45 miles and a half. So it's basically 45 and a half miles that he's put down this hole, and it still has not touched the bottom.
Right.
That's insane.
I got to look up one more thing because we're doing weird facts here. To give people a good idea about this, I think we got to cover all
bases.
All the bases.
Yes.
So all right. So if you, how many miles down did you say it was?
45 and a half miles.
45 and a half miles. So if you jumped in the hole to the depth that he's measured it, you would be falling. This is just insane to imagine, because like skydiving doesn't last this long. If you were to jump into the hole to the depth that he's measured, you would be falling for about 20 something minutes. You'd get bored before you hit anywhere near bottom.
You'd be like, and then like 15 minutes.
Yeah, you'd stop screaming.
Like, we've not hit bottom yet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Try
to imagine that.
What a crazy thought process that is. Like that's literally
you can't
insane.
Scream for 20 something minutes.
There's no way. Not 20 something minutes. It's impossible.
No.
Your voice would give out
maybe like a
15.
medal star.
Correct.
Yeah,
you deserve
easily.
a medal.
Easily. That's right. The other weird thing from that part of the narration is that they built kind of a well thing that goes down it a little bit of the way. So that means that potentially at least some portion of it was dug out by people, I guess.
It was there when he got there. That's the tricky part.
Yeah. Now, I always see, when I had heard it, I had thought it was just like a little thing they built around the top to sort of notify people.
Mm-mm.
But you were saying when you shine the light in the hole, it shows that actually goes down into it a little bit as well.
Correct.
Man, that's interesting.
That's crazy. Now the question is,
like, who would dare work on that?
Yeah. Who built the
who would
wall?
dare?
Yeah, ain't no way I'd do that.
Yeah.
Ain't no way. Hey,
yeah.
This thing's been, and they threw, my favorite part is they threw a refrigerator down there, a television set, and they never heard it hit bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you like to do those stories where they're hucking large appliances into like
couches last time.
Areas.
It's always Art Bell stuff.
Couches last time. Yeah, that's his thing, I guess.
That's his thing. Listen, if you got an appliance you don't want, just take it over to old Art Bell's. Art Bell story time.
It kind of fits though, because we've got like this meme that goes around up here, and probably it does in other countries too. It says Americans will use anything but normal measurements.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, hole is opened up in the highway the size of 3 old-fashioned washing machines.
From the 50s.
Why would you measure it like that? Yeah, tell us how big the hole is. You don't tell us that.
That's what we do. Listen, that's just how we work. That's how we operate, Nick. You just got to deal. So the story has started out on a colossal level. Like, it's hard to really...
Right.
Like, this is already hard to believe. It's one of those things where you're like, really? And I know with Art Bell, and it always cracked me up when he would say it on this, he would go, all right, there's a Bible in front of you. You're going to put your hand on the Bible and you're going to tell me everything is true. And if it's not true, and the guy's like, I'm telling you the truth on the Bible, Art Bell would be like, okay. I'm like, all right, Art, keep him honest, Art.
It's if you know anything about the ocean, this is a pun, but this is hard to fathom. I don't know what percentage of people are going to get that joke, but
yeah,
it's hard to fathom.
Sorry, folks. Nick is the smart one here.
Yeah. Well, no, I just live right near the ocean. I could throw a rock in there from here. It's a nautical measurement of distance or depth, actually.
Which I don't think they use
or
anymore.
Distance,
they haven't used it in a while, right? Wasn't it an old
they do it here.
measurement?
Like, it is, but like people still use it for like wind speed and stuff here. So,
do they?
It's still in use here. Maybe it's not anywhere else, but we still use it.
Some good old maritime information from Nick over here.
That's right.
His maritime adventures.
That's right. You want to know about the sea? I can help you about this.
The problem is under the sea, Nick. That's what they need to know about. Under the sea.
Oh, yeah. See, we don't know a lot about that because here's a fun fact about fishermen, which is our main industry around here. Almost none of them know how to swim. So if they find out about the bottom of the ocean, they don't come back to tell us about it.
Davy Jones's locker.
That's right.
Well, Nick, we got this show on the road. Let's get into some exciting parts. Do you want to add to our narrative a little bit?
I sure do. I think we've done a good job of giving people an idea of what we're talking about so far. So
everything you just learned is about to get turned on its head. So hope you enjoyed your time.
I don't know if I like the sounds of that.
It's only getting crazier from here, folks.
Mel then recounts a bizarre story. A nearby resident once claimed that several years prior, one of his hunting dogs had died. Rather than bury the animal, the man decided to dispose of the body by dropping it into the hole. Several weeks later, while out hunting, the man claimed to have seen his dog alive and wandering about. This wasn't just any dog. It was his dog, identical in every detail, right down to the collar and tag it had worn. The man called out to his dog, but it seemingly ignored him, eventually running off into the distance. This wasn't an isolated incident either. Another neighbor admitted to disposing of dead cows in the hole, though there were no reports of the cattle reappearing.
Ooh, that's a very Stephen King segment right there.
Pet Cemetery, baby. And everyone's going to be like, why is there so many freaking segments? It's because we take a different turn every single segment.
Yeah.
So if I combine any of these segments together, we're going to be like, okay, we need to talk about this, and then this, and this. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. We're just splitting them up.
Have you ever owned a dog?
Oh yeah, own one now.
So you probably know there's no way. I feel like there's no way you'd mistake another dog for your own, unless it was on a great distance. Like,
Yeah. Correct. And you got to
like
understand, these
you
are
get
hunter,
a real attachment.
but these are hunting dogs. So it's not even, I think that's what people don't necessarily think about. Like me and you, we'd be like,
Right.
that's my dog, or no, that's not my, there's actually a video. I can't remember. Maybe I'll try to find it and put it in this podcast, but there's a couple and the guy goes and brings his cat from outside and they're sitting there and they're petting him and they're talking to him. And as he's sitting there and he's looking, he goes, this isn't our cat. It looked just like their cat. Later, they showed their cat and it was almost identical,
Yeah.
but it wasn't siblings
Now,
either.
I know some people aren't like that. Some people do not know their pets that well,
Yeah.
because one time someone called my dad and said, your dog, he's running up the road. And Dad said, oh geez, let's go get the dog. And it was a golden retriever. And we got up there and, you know, there's a lot of traffic and stuff. So Dad pulls over. It's like, get Bess in the car. Bess was her name.
Uh-huh.
So I hop out and I go up to the dog and I'm like, well, you're not Bess. And Dad's getting a little flustered because he's holding up traffic and stuff. He's like, get her in the car. And I'm like, Dad, this ain't our dog.
This isn't even close to our
He's
dog.
like, what are
man.
you talking about? It's Bess. I mean, they look the same, but you know, like your
dog.
you know your dog. So I'm like, well, I don't argue with my dad. So I said, well,
No,
it's
the
not
strange
our
dogs in
dog, Dad, but I'll throw it in the back seat. So I threw the dog in the back seat.
That's hilarious. Oh
We
my
get
gosh.
home and we drive up and Bess is sitting there on the lawn and we bring out this strange dog that's almost her identical twin. Dad's like, that's not our dog. And I'm like, I told you.
I told you it wasn't our dog, Dad. Listen. That's funny.
Yeah. But that was like my dog, so I don't expect him to know it. But you know your dog.
Oh, for sure.
Is my
yeah.
point.
Yeah, you definitely, I feel like I would know all of my animals. That said, we got to think about this from a hunting perspective. When you have a hunting dog,
Right.
you grow a very close attachment. So, prime example,
Oh, heck yeah.
when I went pheasant hunting in South Dakota, they gave us dogs, and those dogs was with their handlers, their trainers. And basically, we would just follow these dogs around, and we would do, you know, whatever the dogs. Because the way I'm trying to think of the easiest way to explain it. We would follow the dogs because the dogs do 95% of the work.
Right, right.
So, like,
and
they'll
they don't
go-
mind it.
Oh yeah, no, they're having fun. They'll go right down a sorghum field and then pop the pheasant, and then you shoot the pheasant, they go get it and then bring it back. They retrieve it for you. But the handlers of those
Right.
dogs, they knew, and some of the dogs to me look the same. I'm like, how do you tell them all apart? And they're like, oh, it's based on their demeanor, how they're, because they're all like from the same breed. Like these are bred
Right.
dogs that look exactly the same, but they could tell by behavior who was their dog and who was not their dog. So the fact that
Right.
this guy's a hunting or has hunting dogs, he's a hunter, he would probably know more than the average person does if that's his dog or not.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting though. They throw it into the hole and then he sees it and he's like, that's my dog. But the dog doesn't want anything to do with him.
Yeah. See, that's the part that makes it scary to me, because I can't imagine what would make your own dog turn on you, because like I'm sure people without animals are thinking I'm overstating this, but the bond someone has with their pets is just like, I can't imagine. Like, I've had dogs defend me when their own life was in danger, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, and to imagine my dog one day not wanting to come near me, I can't imagine it.
It would be a tough thing to comprehend. That said, without going too far into future narration, there's something
Right.
pretty significant that they figure out that makes me believe that maybe that's why this didn't This dog's different. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure if I do, but do you mean like, just to clarify before we go on, that this is not the same dog, or it's the same dog but different?
I don't know, Nick.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll be patient then.
That's towards the end. I think it's actually last segment.
Right.
Or no.
Oh, okay.
Next to last
yeah,
segment.
I got to be real patient then.
Next to last segment. We still got a little time before we get there, Nick.
All right, let's put a little pin in this one because I want to come back to that.
Yes.
Like, that stuff's important to me.
Oh, big time. Well, and this, like I say, this thing takes so many different spins and turns, and like the moment that you think you've grasped the concept of something, it goes ping, here's something new. you know?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that.
Yes.
I did remember this part, but only after you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And also Pet Sematary is one of the movies that freaked me out as a kid. So
Pet Sematary is so good. I read the book before I saw the movie. Did you see the new movie of Pet Sematary?
Yeah, I did. It was all right.
Not as good.
No.
Not as good. Not
Didn't
happy.
even have Judd in it, did it?
Do what?
Didn't even have old Jed Clampett in it, did it?
It did not.
Like, you can't have Pet Sematary without Jed Clampett.
You can't have Pet Sematary without the Jed Clampett.
Wait, no, it wasn't Jed. It was Herman Munster.
Oh, it was Herman Munster. You're
That's
right.
who it was. Yeah.
You sold me on that for like
Sorry
5 seconds. I followed along
I
with you.
know.
I'm like,
I sounded so
that's right.
confident.
You did. I'm sitting there thinking, man, Jed Clampett wasn't that. You're good at this, Nick.
I don't know. I would love to see Jed Clampett in anything, though. That guy was funny as heck.
Oh, let me tell you about a man named Jed. Speaking of which, we're about to take another spin. Y'all ready for another spin?
All right. Y'all ready for this? Yes.
We're about to take a whole bunch of spins, folks.
Mel described how he had constructed a metal lid to cover the hole, fearing that children might trespass onto his property and fall in. Art chillingly remarked that if someone ever had fallen in, there would be no way of knowing. Mel then mentioned a peculiar stipulation in his will. If he were to die, he wanted his body to be dropped into the hole, just to see what would happen. This prompted several callers to volunteer to be lowered into the hole, but Mel was understandably reluctant to entertain such a dangerous idea. Instead, callers suggested various methods to measure the hole's depth, including the use of radar and other technology. Mel revealed that this was his first time sharing his story publicly. He had never expected to be discussing it with such a vast audience. To his knowledge, no one had ever reported on this seemingly bottomless pit, and he had even invited a few people to investigate it. His wife worked at a university, and when they mentioned the hole to the professors there, they were met with laughter and disbelief. Art suggested involving other members of the media, like a television crew, but Mel seemed hesitant. Art then proposed that the hole could potentially interest the U.S. government as a safe place to dispose of nuclear waste. Little did Art know how close he might have been to the truth as their conversation drew to a close that night.
That was an interesting thought I probably wouldn't have thought of.
I mean, it's Art
Disposing
Bell.
nuclear waste in there.
Art Bell is a genius.
That was Art Bell's idea, right?
That was Art Bell's idea. Correct.
I wouldn't take the chance, to be honest with you. Unless they knew for sure it was bottomless. I don't want them dumping toxic waste or radioactive materials on my property.
Well, you know, speaking of, hold that thought for 1 second. My dad calls me and he never calls me. Yeah, my dad never calls. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get a call. I'm like, let's put it this way. Since I've had a cell phone and my dad has had a cell phone, I can maybe count on one hand how many times he's initiated a phone call to me.
Yeah, I think it's the same to me, except I can't remember a specific one. So I'm not sure it's even happened. Like, he'll message me on Facebook, but that's about where it goes.
See, if my dad sent a Facebook message to me, I would know it's not real because my dad doesn't get on Facebook. I'd be like,
Dad had to get on there because the buy and sell of like animals is on there. So he wants to go like sell his ducks and buy a emu or something, you know, that kind of stuff.
makes perfect sense. So when I saw my dad, which by the way, Dad, you graced our podcast.
Yeah, first guest star.
First guest star, listen. But as soon as I saw
At
him,
least
I'm
from
like,
your family.
yeah, facts. Well, then I'm sitting there and I'm going, man, he
Yeah.
never calls me. This has to be something big. No, he's just car shopping.
Yeah.
It's about time you call me all these years.
Yeah.
That's what I do for a living, Dad. Gosh.
When you say it was your dad calling, I was thinking about how rare my dad calls and my heart started pounding. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to be bad? Like,
That's what I was thinking because, like I say, he never
Anywho.
calls.
yeah,
Never calls.
right. He just wanted to be on air.
That's what it was. Listen, I can't blame him. I'd want to be on air
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, he just wants to share in his son's fame.
Exactly. So what the heck was we talking about, Nick? That completely threw my entire train of thought off. What was we saying?
Boy,
I guess I could look at the segment. We was talking about children.
well, he put a lid on
That's what it was.
to keep children out of there. Right. But there was something, he said there was something bizarre about that or something.
Yeah, so the lid, he was pretty smart because he's like, you know what? I don't want to have any kids
Right.
falling in that hole. And one of the things the college was talking about was, well, there's got to be a way of testing how deep this thing is, whether it's sonar or, you know,
Right.
any of that kind of stuff. So, but I thought it was funny because Art started talking about maybe we can get some other people out there. That's what we was talking about was the nuclear stuff.
Ah, oh, yeah. And also you mentioned about them talking at the university about it. And
Yes.
they're sort of like laughing
Yeah, because
it up.
think about it. Your wife works at the university. All of a sudden, she's like, hey, I've got this hole in my yard. You guys specialize in, you know, physics and stuff. We keep throwing stuff in
yard
this
holes.
hole. We keep throwing stuff in this hole, and it's a bottomless pit. It just keeps on. Now, I thought to myself when I heard that, I'm like, if I was a professor, I'd probably laugh too. I'd be like, lady,
Yeah.
please. You've been doing this for how many decades and it's still not full? Ma'am. But then there's a part of me that's like, if you're her, like, how do you, it goes back to when we was talking about Markham, Madman Markham.
Mm.
It's such an
Right.
outlandish thing to talk about. But how do you prove to anyone that the story's legit anyway? Like, you're
Other
going to
than
sound
showing
crazy.
him, there's no way.
Yeah, it's just an impossible thing. Now, talking about
Yeah.
nuclear, I did not know this until
Mm-hmm.
last weekend. So the nuclear bombs that we used on, like, let's use for example when we went to war and we started dropping
Right.
the U.S. Okay, it's our fault. Okay, listen, hey,
A little much, you guys.
listen, we went a little extreme on that one, but you know,
Yeah.
the nuclear bombs are not the same as they are back then. Now they're not even remotely close.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, what's the one thing that is about fallout? It's about the nuclear war and the fallout from nuclear war.
Mhm.
You know that wouldn't happen nowadays, correct?
Yeah, it's more localized. I think they've probably been working on because they don't want to salt the earth every time they have to use these. Well, hopefully we never use them again.
Correct. Let's hope. Yeah. But basically, there would
But,
be no fallout. So they're more concerned
Right.
that there's nuclear, there's fallout, and then that fallout moves. That's their concern. Now,
Right.
it's all about if you're too close to wherever that is, you just got vaporized. You're dust.
Right. Yeah.
But if you was not in that proximity, whatever that proximity is, I wonder how big that area is if a nuclear bomb hits.
Well, I learned this recently from Fallout, the TV show of all things.
Yeah.
Do you know why people started doing thumbs up?
No.
Because you put your thumb up, and if it covers the mushroom cloud, you should start running. If it doesn't, it's too bad. you're done.
Oh no.
Yeah, right?
I did not know that. That's crazy.
Now, I'm going to say I think that's real and not just a TV show thing, but
I might look that
feel
up.
free to correct me if we're wrong, but I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I would be curious how far. I'm sure the government probably has me on a watch list based on some of the things that I search. What's the range
Probably.
of nuclear weapons? If this doesn't put me on a list, I don't know what will. Nuclear
Okay,
bombs.
apparently that was debunked. That's
Not true. Doggone TV shows lying out here,
the
Nick.
thumbs up thing. It was such a cool thing. I wish that was true. Apparently people are saying if you do that, you'll just be in time to see your thumb melt off.
Well, unlike Nick, okay, I'm all about real answers here, okay? The blast radius, the immediate destructive radius where buildings and structures are heavily damaged or destroyed for the typical modern nuclear bomb
Okay.
is 1 megaton bomb would be about 5 kilometers or 3 miles.
It's quite far.
I'm kind of surprised it's not further. Thermal radiation radius for a 1 megaton bomb
Yeah.
is up to 10 kilometers or 6 miles.
Oh, okay. I think I was counting on all of this because that's still bad.
Oh, yeah. I kind of thought, when you see all those movies, though, like think about Fallout, how far away that was. And they was rushing to the bunker. I mean, that was a pretty big distance. Like I think of those old videos where it shows the atomic bombs going off and destroying these buildings. And I guess I always thought, man, that's probably like 50 miles away.
Yeah, a lot of the times it is in movies and stuff, and probably even in the videos we watch. But did you see Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Yes.
You remember how he was in a nuclear blast and he just got in a fridge and was fine?
Yes. He was completely fine. Which makes, listen, again, that's probably scientifically accurate. Okay.
Probably. Using the logic I just used on that thumb thing, that's probably accurate.
It's pretty interesting sometimes when you see movies and how they portray things and then you find out and you're like, well, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
Man.
I think I just realized why I'm so into like all these topics we cover. Because I think I'm pretty gullible because I just like sort of heard that thumb thing.
You just went
and
with
I was like, yeah, that sounds legit. And I stored it. But then when I said it out loud myself, I was like, you know what? Let's check
crazy.
that out.
That sounds a little crazy.
When it's coming off my own tongue, I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Listen, sometimes you just don't know.
Yeah. I'm a trusting guy. What can I say?
Sometimes you just got to
Believe
trust.
the best in people.
I mean,
Yeah.
Listen,
I didn't think Fallout would lie to me.
we trust a lot, Nick. We trust a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've made it relatively far. Old Mel, he's given us a lot to go on. And we've stayed pretty consistent with the exception of the pet cemetery part. Okay. We've concerned ourselves with the depth. We've concerned ourselves now with animals that might roam around. No one believes our story. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The cows don't come back though, but I think they're too dumb.
I mean, listen, cows have 4 stomachs. They're alien. Okay.
Yep.
It's not really our fault. They're not from our dimension anyway.
No. I think if a cow came back to life in the hole, it would just stay there. A dog probably would want to get out.
Oh, yeah.
The cow would just stay. So.
Every time you say cow, I think about the cows in all the little, like, different graphics where it shows the aliens, like, zooming them up and their eyes are always real big. Like, that's how I see a cow being if you drop it in the hole with his big old eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Cows can be surprised, but they got no problem solving skills.
For sure. Now, one interesting thing at the end of that little segment was Art said, the government might have some interest in that for the nuclear stuff, right? What do you reckon happens next?
the government takes an interest in it.
I don't know. I guess
Which, in my opinion, this is bad news.
Bad news bears, man. Bad news bears.
That's what I'm thinking.
Let's find out what happens.
Art and Mel stayed in touch over the days following their initial conversation. On the very night Mel appeared on Art's show, he noticed something peculiar and called Art off air, sounding panicked. As events unfolded, things only grew more complicated. Art invited a visibly disturbed Mel back onto the show to provide the audience with an update. Mel explained that after ending the call in the early hours of Saturday morning, he decided to drive up to the hole. Upon arrival, he saw a helicopter flying overhead, its spotlight sweeping across the darkened fields. While unusual, it wasn't entirely unexpected given the proximity of a large military reservation and a nearby small airport. However, Mel couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was amiss. The following day, while driving past the area, Mel noticed more helicopters, this time multiple ones. His suspicions grew stronger. Determined to investigate further, Mel drove up to the hole again the next day. But this time he was met with an unexpected obstacle. Military personnel. Armed guards and trucks blocked his access road about a mile from the hole, preventing him from entering his own property. Mel's sense of unease deepened as he realized that the situation was escalating far beyond his control. What was once a curious anomaly on his land had now drawn the attention of powerful forces, leaving Mel and his story shrouded in even greater mystery.
Where does that government get their nerve?
You know what I find interesting, and this is very similar to some of the conversations we have about Art Bell. I was always curious if the government wasn't just listening in on Art Bell episodes.
I was going to say the same thing.
To get
like,
their
clearly
info.
they are.
Yeah. They're like, what crazy thing is being said on Art Bell tonight? They're taking notes. They're like, oh, what was his name? Where was he from? This.
Yeah. They moved pretty quick because he had just got off the phone with him, I guess. They must have been en route.
Yeah, for sure. But you got to understand, the government has so many different ways of looking into things.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sky's really the limits, you know. For anyone that doesn't know, again, I'm in the world of automotive lending. And one of the tools that we had when I did a little bit of collection work also, which I hated doing collections.
Oh, you're the bounty hunter.
Yeah, I hated being the bounty hunter.
Man.
I hated it. I was like, dog, the bounty hunter. But poor old dog, man. I feel bad ever since his wife died.
Oh yeah.
But of course he's doing okay now. I guess he remarried already. But
didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. I don't think the family was happy about it, but listen, you're still down with me, dog Chapman. You're still down with me, dog. But it was interesting because when I did collections, we had some tools at our disposal that we couldn't really use to do things. Now, I heard a story. Like, here's a prime example. If I knew someone's first and last name, I could look up everything about them.
Ooh, creepy.
Yeah. So there was a story that went around that, and we were told when you signed into this, and it was a system called Accurate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And with Accurate, like I could type in, let's use as an example, Cardi B. Like if I knew Cardi B's actual name, which I could Google search and find Cardi B's actual name. Or if I,
right, I'm sure.
Yeah, or if I did like 50 Cents or like Curtis Jackson, right?
Yeah.
It would give me all these different Curtis Jacksons. I could narrow it down to their age.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as there wasn't too many, I could click and I could see their most recent address,
right?
All of their phone numbers, all their relatives. Like the sky's really the limits. So when you sign in, you have to choose why you're using that service. In my case, it was typically collections, and you could only look up people that you were collecting debts on.
Right. Which makes sense.
Makes perfect logical sense. Well, supposedly I heard a story that there was an employee before me that apparently looked up Britney Spears
Oh, no.
Now, here's what I think happened, and I don't know this to be true.
Okay.
My guess is if you're a celebrity or you got some type of qualifications, there's probably an alarm system that goes off. And they're like, why is this person in Ohio looking up Britney Spears in X, Y, and Z? Now, my understanding is the police came to the facility and arrested him. And there was a series of questioning, and apparently we fired him because that's a big no-no. Can't do that.
As it should be, in my opinion.
As it
that's
should be.
way too far. That's stalker behavior.
That is 100% stalker behavior.
Right.
But I found it so odd that that was a thing. I'm like, how crazy is that there's a system that you can look up anybody?
Yeah. And I bet you there's worse systems that give you even more information.
Which is where I was going. So if I could do that as a collector, you don't think they did it with old Mel?
Oh, guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
I like the idea that there's someone at the FBI or probably the CIA, I guess maybe would be more accurate, whose job, part of his job at least, is to listen to Art Bell every day or every time he was putting out a thing. Like, that's a couple hours of your job every day, just to kick back and listen to Art Bell and put a little checkbox if it's realistic, checkbox if it's not, and then send out your guys to go check people out like Mel or Markham or like these different guys. That'd be an awesome job. I do that for free.
But think about it. What is realistic and what's not realistic when it comes to the government? I mean, this is just a dude talking about his hole.
Yeah. But see, you might be in the government and you might know about two other ones.
That is true. That is true.
So maybe it's more realistic if you have more information, or maybe they had some involvement with it and didn't know that that hole ended up there.
But how high of clearance would that be? Because how many times do they say, well, the president really doesn't know about this level of whatever?
Yeah.
And you lean back and you go, well, if the president doesn't know, like who's on the need to know basis?
Yeah, who decides it, for that matter?
Right. So now you got someone listening.
That makes you wonder about that.
Yeah. But now you've got someone listening that's trying to justify if it is real or not. But there had to be someone listening.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go from
there had to be
no one knowing anything about it to the very next day you calling Bell off the line, Art Bell, and being like, dude, there's helicopters all over the place.
Oh yeah, Art Bell was probably bugged 6 ways to Sunday. Like
for sure.
You know, let's put aside all these supernatural or sci-fi things that people might call in about. The overlap between conspiracy theorist and potential domestic terrorist is really, really close.
Right.
So that was probably a good place to keep a pulse on that community too, right? Keep your finger on the pulse of that community.
Correct. It was definitely interesting to see, is how I'd put it. Now, where we left that narration was he drove up. There's military personnel there. You want to see what happened once he got there?
Yeah, let's see what's up with that. It's not good. Again, I'll say that.
Mel approached the first guard and inquired about the situation. The guard responded with a vague explanation, claiming there had been a plane crash and no one was allowed to proceed further up the road. Mel was immediately suspicious. On that clear sunny day, there was no sign of smoke in the sky. Additionally, he noticed fresh track marks from heavy machinery on the road leading past the guards. Insisting on his rights as a property owner, Mel demanded to speak with someone in charge. The guard returned with another man, this one dressed in civilian clothes. The man reiterated that Mel couldn't return to his property until the supposed crash had been thoroughly investigated and the area cleaned up. When Mel questioned the absence of smoke and the presence of tread marks, he was dismissed curtly. Frustrated, Mel argued that he should not be denied access to his own land. In a blunt tone, the civilian man suggested that it wasn't necessarily Mel's property, hinting that it would be very easy to find a drug lab there. This veiled threat left Mel shaken. Art, sensing the gravity of the situation, immediately probed whether Mel was involved in any illicit activities. Mel clarified that he worked in alternative medicine and indeed had a lab in one of his trailers. However, his work involved plants traditionally used by Native American tribes for medicinal purposes. He acknowledged how easily his activities could be misrepresented. The civilian man then told Mel to leave and assured him they would contact him when it was safe to return. When Mel offered his contact details, the man coolly responded that they already had them. Before leaving, Mel asked if he should refrain from telling anyone about this incident. The man's chilling reply was, "No one would believe you if you did."
Man, oh man.
That went down just about how I expected it to go down with the government.
Oh, for sure. You know what I thought was so funny about that? And for anyone that doesn't know, obviously I had to change a few words. Okay. I think y'all can read
expletives deleted.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure y'all can read between the lines these Native American medicinal purposes plants. Pretty sure y'all can figure that out. So he gets there. There's a military dude. And the military dude's like, "Yeah, no, this isn't necessarily your land." And he goes, he brings another guy who's dressed in civilian clothing, mind you. He's not military.
These are the guys you got to watch out for.
These are the ones you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
And while they're talking, he tells Mel, "You know, we just over there searching, you know. Would have hated to have ran into a lab that was over there that, you know, may have had some questionable plants in it, you know."
Yeah. In fact, this might not even be your land at all.
It might not be your land at all. This land is my land.
Yeah.
This land is your land. From the Pacific Highland, you know.
I'll tell you one thing I'm jealous of the government about is I wish when I was at work, if someone questioned me instead of having to explain myself, I could just say something really stupid and then end the conversation. Like, someone's like, "Well, how come this happened?" And I'd just be like, "Swamp gas," and walk away from them, you know, or owls did it, or there was a plane crash. Like,
it's funny to me how easily they get away with things, though. Like, they can pretty much say and do whatever they want. But then again, it shows if these stories have any validity and any truth to them. I think the amazing thing is, and we talk about this all the time when it comes to paranormal and ghost stories, like there's a common thread that we see over and over and over again. And we go, it's odd that all of these hauntings start with scratching and starts with knocking and then has this happen and then has that happen. Every story that we hear where the government is in, it's always the same story there too. They kind of push their way through. Sometimes people die. Like it's always the same story every time.
Yeah. Well, when you got no one to answer to, you're the highest authority there is.
Correct.
Like, what stops you from doing anything you feel like? Correct. You know? Like, who's to say a government official in these capacities wouldn't just get rid of someone who was annoying them?
Right.
Like, just a minor inconvenience and you could be like off the map, you know?
Correct. And that's part of the problem. That's really the scary part of, like, let's use, for example, our podcast. We would never do anything that would make a government angry. But let's say we brought up some stuff the government didn't like.
Right.
I think I told my mom this one time because she was talking about me. She was talking about something on the cell phone. And I'm like, "Mom, I really don't want to talk about this because I'm scared I'm going to go on a list if I'm not already on one." She's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. Like, maybe we just don't talk about this person right now. Like, do we have to do it on a phone line where they've been known to peer into from time to time. And that's, like I told her, I said, she goes, oh, well, it's me saying it. I'm like, I don't know if you know this or not. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And that's the analogy they're going to use. And all of a sudden they're going to be like, well, 45-year-old podcaster found dead of a heart attack in a ditch. Sad day.
Yeah.
Sad day.
Orange top behind him looks like a natural occurrence.
Exactly. They'll be like, we found all kinds of cocaine on him. You know?
Yeah, just sprinkled everywhere.
Just sprinkled all over the place. It's like, it wouldn't be that hard to get rid of me. So this is why we got to stay on the straight and narrow. Straight and narrow, boys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we can't even annoy them.
We can't even annoy them. Government is our friend.
Yeah. Yeah. No, A1 super governments.
Yep. We're not, what's the guy that we had on the well, we didn't have him on the podcast just a few weeks ago. That guy that had cancer and all that stuff, has the messed up face, always talks about UFOs. I can't remember what his name. He doesn't have a messed up face, but like his skin and stuff has issues, I think, from the cancer he had and the treatments. Anyway. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name either, but like he has that kill switch. So if he dies, all kinds of info goes out. We don't have enough info for that, Nick. We gotta play it safe.
Well, I'll tell you my plan. So if I find out they're after me, I'm gonna run and drive and fly as quick as I can to get to the hole that we're talking about. And if they kill me there, I'll roll into the hole. And then I'll come back and avenge myself. Like, you ever seen the movie The Crow?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll come back like that. I'll have the black makeup, nails, everything. It would be cool.
Which does make me wonder. I was going to talk about that, too, in that segment. If a dog came back, supposedly, what happens if a human's dead and they get thrown in? Is that why he wanted to go in the hole?
Well, he said, he wants to come back. So if he dies, he wants to get thrown in there, right?
Yeah. Well, he said he wants to get thrown in there when he dies. Well, he doesn't say why.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, that was my first thought.
That was my first thought.
If I got to die, I want to go in the hole.
But then the question is, do you come back or does something else come back?
Well, there ain't going to be anything worse than me coming back.
I mean, you never know, Nick. You never know.
Yeah. You know how everyone says, oh, it must have been my evil twin. Well, I'm that one. Good one's in the hole.
Good one's in the hole. Listen, you just saw the last
That's
one.
Right. That's why I came out of that hole with my fists up, ready to fight aliens. And I'm raring to go.
You know, the funny part of this entire story is this government's like, hey, you guys are going to do what I say. This is what we're commanding, or we'll just make your life more difficult. And, you know, I mentioned we've kind of followed this path and it's been relatively straight. Super easy to follow.
Right.
Good, fun story. Nothing going too far left to center.
Till the man came.
Then things became complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to take us to the next segment because things get a little bit more interesting. We're able to follow pretty easily. At the beginning of this segment, there's a new thing that's added to the whole.
Okay. Is the government gone or are they sticking around?
Oh, the government never leaves, Nick. The government never leaves.
Dang it. Okay.
But in addition to the beginning, I do venture off into another thing that we're going to talk about, but check out this part of the story.
The following day, Mel shared his unsettling experience with a neighbor who revealed something even more bizarre. The night after Mel's encounter with the military, the neighbor had been outside, gazing in the direction of Mel's property. He described seeing something indescribable in the sky, a beam of light shooting upwards. However, it wasn't a typical light. It was black, blacker than the night sky itself. Throughout their various phone calls, Art sometimes expressed skepticism about Mel's stories, but not this time. He seemed genuinely concerned for Mel's well-being. Something in their off-air conversations had convinced Art that this situation was serious and he felt a measure of responsibility for the government's apparent interest in Mel's hole. Adding to the mystery, Mel received a message on his answering machine from a local real estate agent. Despite Mel's property not being listed for sale, the agent mentioned that someone had made an extremely generous offer to purchase the land. At the time of the call, Mel didn't know the exact amount of the offer. Mel interpreted this as the officials presenting him with a choice: either accept the money and leave, or they would find a way to seize the land. Art had Mel recount the entire story again, not just to catch up listeners who missed the initial broadcast, but also to scrutinize Mel's account for any inconsistencies that might suggest a hoax. Yet Mel's story remained consistent, further validating the chilling and enigmatic nature of the events surrounding Mel's hole.
I had some interesting stuff in it that you might have to reiterate to me.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the light again.
So,
or the not light, or whatever it is.
well, and that's what makes this part so interesting, Nick. So he's talking to the neighbor. Now, Mel never saw this, but the neighbor hits him up and his neighbor's like, hey, it's looking over on your land, and I saw a light coming out of your property up into the air. And Mel's like, oh, you did? And he goes, but the thing is it's black. It's a black light. He goes, what do you mean? And the way that it was assumed was, you look up into the sky and you see all the stars and stuff. This was a beam of light that covered up those stars, so you could not see through this light. But it was a black light.
That's almost like removing light or something.
Kinda.
Like, I wonder if it's like something happened at the hole where it was like turned into a black hole temporarily or something. I don't know. I can't imagine what would cause that.
I will tell you before we move any further, remember this moment.
Oh, okay. It's going to be important. We'll put a pin in that one over
That's
here.
an important one because there's going to be some other, in this case, what we assume when we think of light is bright light. This is a dark light, the opposite. There might be other opposites in the future to where you go,
okay.
Why is that a thing?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. Like, why is that a thing? But also, the military would still be around it at that time. So did they do that? Or was this a natural feature of the hole? Or
that was a natural feature.
Could this have been happening? Oh, was it? I wonder if this could have been happening all along and just no one noticed.
Yes, would be my guess. There's a reason for that I can't go into because it's in a future segment. But yes, this is something that more than likely has happened, or something's happened to cause it to start happening now. But I don't think it's because the military was there. And you'll understand that
methane from the cows.
I'm sorry.
Methane from the cows.
It could be. All them cows
They're just standing at the bottom there. They're standing on little ledges, don't know what to do.
At least they made it to the bottom. Good night.
Yeah, no, they're on ledges. They're not even at the bottom. They're just standing there. No, but that's interesting. Like, what? I'm trying to go through like all the even theories that I've heard and what could cause the absence of light, other than something just being in front of it. Like maybe it's blocking out the stars because something is physically there.
Well, there's one thing that we've talked about that you've not pieced together with it yet.
Oh. Can you give me a hint, or is this in the future too?
Birds.
Oh. Birds won't go over it.
I wonder why that is.
They don't want to get sucked into it or something? I don't know.
What if there's always something coming out of the hole, but we can only see it at nighttime because it darkens things out? But the birds can sense it all the time.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. Like it's something that's always happening.
But we just don't recognize it. It's kind of like radiation. Radiation's always doing something, but we don't know that it's doing something.
Yeah. Well, I guess if Mel were here, my question would be to him was, have you ever gone to the hole at night? I know he had gone in the early morning, but the sun may have been up.
Yeah.
And dogs won't go near it, and they can always sense stuff.
Correct.
Yeah. That's interesting. And that guy just happened to be looking over at it. But it's kind of weird that he never looked over before, not once at nighttime.
How many times have you looked over at your neighbor's house and saw something that you would have to look real close at to make it make sense?
Probably not very often, I suppose.
And
But I mean, if there was something really outside my realm of possibility there, I probably would quite often.
Yeah. Like maybe,
But I'd have to see it that first time.
like maybe, I don't know, if the military was over there and you knew the military was over there and you're like, what are they doing over there?
Yeah.
So you glance over and you go,
Yeah,
what
that's
the
a good
heck is
point.
that?
Yeah, like I start watching frequently if that was happening.
Correct. Which gave more
Yeah,
opportunities.
Yeah, maybe I'd just glance over otherwise, but if the military was over there, I'd keep an eye on it.
Correct. Now, another interesting thing is he's on this call.
Right.
Art Bell's making him, he's not starting the story where it begins. He says, tell our listeners what happened last time. And he's listening for him to screw something up.
Yeah, inconsistencies and
But nothing was
changing the
inconsistent.
story. Yeah.
Everything remained exactly the same. No difference.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
they're talking on the phone. A real estate agent calls and says, well, got an offer for your land.
Yeah.
Would you be interested?
I'm surprised they wouldn't take it. Like, do you guys have that thing called eminent domain?
Yes.
I'm surprised they wouldn't just take it.
Well, it
But I guess
draws
if they
more
did
attention.
that, he might speak up.
Correct. It
Yeah.
draws more attention.
Hmm. If they can get him to take an offer, he's sort of complicit in it. Like he's taking money to help hush this up. So it sort of makes him partly guilty too.
Correct. Correct.
Rough situation. Because like he said, you know, this might be their final peace offering before
They just take it outright.
crap hits the fan.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we've kind of covered everything that's going on. We talked about all the different ways of looking at the hole and what the hole's got going on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He starts talking to his neighbors a little bit more and more, and the
Right.
neighbors they bring up something that he didn't know. Do you want to know what that is?
I sure do. I want to know everything. What are you talking about?
Mel continued his investigation by speaking with other neighbors, uncovering an intriguing detail. He talked to an elderly man who had lived in the area for about 50 years and also used to dump his rubbish in the hole. The man recalled that when he first started using the hole, it was surrounded by a series of large stones. Curious, Mel showed him a picture of Stonehenge, and the man confirmed that the stones looked very similar, though without the top lintel sections, just stone pillars pointing skyward. As the conversation broadened, callers contributed their own knowledge. One caller mentioned knowing someone from the area who had talked about a large hole back in the 1980s, suggesting that this mysterious hole had been a local landmark for some time. Discussions veered into theories about the Earth's crust, hollow Earth, and even the possibility that the hole might be a natural time machine, with objects entering it reappearing somewhere else in history. Art steered the conversation back to the unsettling government involvement. Mel pointed out that in their quiet area, even minor incidents like a kid throwing a snowball at a moving car made the local news. Yet, there was nothing about a plane crash. Moreover, neighbors had observed trucks driving onto Mel's land, carrying what seemed to be generators and temporary huts, indicating that whatever was happening, it was no short-term operation. Art advised Mel that his best defense was to go public, urging him to involve other media outlets or leverage political connections. Mel expressed his concern that doing so might lead to his arrest, a fear that loomed large given the ominous warnings and threats he had already received. This would be the last time Mel is heard from for years.
There's a lot in that segment there.
But
The stones strike me as particularly interesting because that would be, I mean, likely that would be real ancient. Like that hole's been there a long time.
correct.
I mean, it's not to say we can't move stones now, but
Right. But think about it. When we talk about things like Stonehenge or places like that, we've always thought that that is some form of a portal, or that it provides some certain capabilities that is beyond our comprehension. We just can't use it for anything.
right. It's not, to my knowledge, ever been a warning.
Right.
Like, watch out for the hole or something like that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
I wonder what happened to them. Like, clearly we can't know that, I guess, but and did they predate the wall around it, or is that after?
There's a lot to
So
it.
many unknowns.
There's so many unknowns. That's what
Yeah.
makes this story so fascinating.
Oh, I know. Like this, yeah, my mind's just reeling with the possibilities. Like, are these ancient stones? You know, if they were, how did someone get rid of them? Did they push them into the hole? Did
Right.
they, you know? I'm curious too where they come up with the idea that this hole could be like a time portal. But one connection I did make there is the guy throws his dead dog in. He sees it later. I mean, a time portal, maybe it didn't come to him because it was back in a time before it knew him, or, you know, there's a lot of
theories.
what ifs that could be there.
A
My
lot
main
of
thing
what
was
ifs.
the stones. Like, where are the stones and where did they come from?
The stones is a fascinating part of the story because it's very odd to
Yeah.
think that these stones exist and that we already have stones like that now.
Right,
Why are these here, and why is it at this hole?
right.
So we've got, just so everyone can keep track here, there's a hole where things can be thrown in forever.
Yep.
There was a dog that was thrown in that supposedly came back but didn't know its owner.
Right. A la Pet Cemetery.
Yes. There's a black light that started being emitted from the hole. We
Or
know,
always was.
we know that it's at least 45 miles down minimum.
Right.
45
Deeper
and
than
a
the
half.
deepest parts of the ocean.
Yes, much deeper. Like not even close.
Yeah. Not water filled.
Not water filled that we've reached.
Yeah. But so far below the bottom of the ocean, that seems so unlikely. That's
Yes.
crazy.
Correct. We've thrown other animals down there and have never found them. Dead animals,
Yeah.
dead
Dumb
cows.
ones, though.
Yeah. I mean, not the smartest. Okay. Not the smartest of the
No.
bunch.
Yeah. I figured they just couldn't climb back out. You know what I mean?
Correct. Could be.
They suck at, they can't
got
even go up
hooves.
big hills.
They got hooves, man. That's
Yeah,
hard.
they can't do anything.
Yeah.
They suck at moving.
They suck. They got 4 stomachs.
That's why they're burgers.
It's weighing them down. But they're delicious.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why they still exist.
That's right. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah.
And then now you got the government there.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to cover everything. They're lying about everything as they do.
Yeah.
And now he's getting an offer to purchase the house, or the property, should I say. And
Right.
then he just flat out disappears. Art tries to contact him. He's not there anymore. Huh.
Sounded like he didn't take the offer.
Well, there's only really one way to
But,
find that out, Nick.
Yeah, I'm assuming he did. Like, he's still around, because otherwise we wouldn't have additional segments, probably.
Maybe he's hiding like Madman Markham did.
Could be. In the same place. Art Bell runs like a... imagine Art Bell knows that this has happened, because in your segment,
Yep,
he mentioned that he felt responsible for this.
that is true.
Imagine this happens so frequently that we know that Art Bell's being watched, Art Bell knows that Art Bell's being watched, so he sets up a safe house program for these odd fellows.
Well, if you remember on Madman Markham episode, which we covered, if you've not seen the Madman Markham episode, definitely go back and watch that.
Oh, awesome episode.
Yeah. Madman Markham said that he was at an undisclosed location that Art Bell set him up with.
Oh, he does have a safe house, or he did.
He did, at least.
Wow. And maybe he puts people in, and he has to pretend that he can't reach them.
Right.
To protect them.
Correct.
Imagine that.
The other thing to think about is the man passed away from very mysterious circumstances.
See, I don't know a bit about what happened to Art Bell.
Really?
What are the circumstances? Can you tell me, or is that too long of a story?
He passed, we'll just give the short version. He passed away from medical complications from medicines.
Oh. That sounds like the government story equivalent, medical equivalent of an airplane crashed.
I don't know what to tell you, Nick. I would not think the government would provide him with medications that could potentially kill him from a debilitating disease that he had his entire life. That does not sound feasible at all, much like Matthew Perry.
Oh. I don't know much about his thing either.
Matthew Perry from Friends.
Just,
I'll be there for you.
I don't.
You'll be there for me.
All I had heard is that he drowned in a tub, or a hot tub.
Well, now the news just came out on that, Nick, that there's a person of interest because they found ketamine in his system. Enough ketamine to make him be debilitated. And
really?
Yeah, he met this unnamed person in rehabilitation, and I guess supposedly she's now a person of interest, and they're not disclosing who it is.
That's something.
But apparently it's someone that everyone knows, is what's being said. But they're thinking that she may have inadvertently killed him, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Killed him with the special K.
That's the rumor.
So they haven't released who they think it is?
No. They said they cannot release it because it's an ongoing investigation. It's going to be like P.
They
Diddy.
say it's someone everyone knows.
Yeah, it's going to be like P. Diddy flying out of country, hiding somewhere.
Man, everyone's just up to nefarious things.
2024, everyone going down, Nick.
Yeah, like everyone's taking on everyone.
Woo.
Yeah.
If you did some wrong, boy, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's people coming out the woodwork going, listen, back in 1943, okay, I stole a lollipop from the general store. Okay?
Yeah.
No one come to me.
You're done. You are out. Yeah.
Yeah. P. Diddy just deleted everything he had. Every Instagram, everything's gone.
He's got a real sordid backstory. I've heard some of the stuff that is going on.
Yeah.
But
it's a lot.
Not good. That's not the kind of Hollywood I want to ever be involved in.
I don't think I want to be involved in Hollywood at all.
No. I don't know. I might be a star.
Not from what I hear.
Just keep your nose clean.
It's all
keep
Illuminati
your nose clean.
Stuff.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You can't keep your nose clean because they rat you out, man. They try to find something that you want to experiment with, and they use it against you. That's how they get you.
Nah, they wouldn't get me.
Everyone but Nick. Listen, Nick can go Hollywood. I'm staying on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. If we grow, we're vertically integrated. It's just Nick and I that can drop this ship down. Okay. Well,
we'll both be Hollywood. It'll be great. I'll keep you out of trouble. Don't you worry.
Ooh. Wasn't it you?
I got my eyes out for you.
You're the good one, right?
Yeah, I'm super good.
Well, old Mel, he disappeared too. He's gone. He gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we think that maybe he's in Art Bell's protection program, but he's gone for years, it said. Or decades, did it say? How long did it
3
say?
years.
3 years.
Do you want to know what happened, Nick?
Yeah, I sure do. I almost swore there. I almost said F yeah. I really want to know.
Let's see what happened to him.
The year was now 2000. As the world settled into a new millennium, an old friend returned to Coast AM. Art Bell was audibly thrilled to welcome Mel back to the show. Over the years, Mel had kept in touch with Art through emails, apparently sent from Australia. When he had been tempted with a substantial sum of money to sell his land, Mel had mentioned his long-held dream of relocating to Australia and leaving all this behind. It seemed he had fulfilled that dream, but now, back in America, things had taken a dark turn for him. Art began by discussing how Mel's story had evolved into a mini-cultural phenomenon. Television crews had gone searching for Mel's hole. Songs had been written about it, and even drinks had been named in its honor. The lack of closure on the story had driven people to the brink of obsession, with no one knowing what had happened to Mel after the supposed offer to buy his land. Once again, Art had Mel recap the entire story, but this time, Mel added some new and significant details. He explained that before the snowstorm that triggered this entire saga, he had been living on the property, conducting research into Native American herbal medicines and cultivating various plants. He mentioned a Mexican man who used to come and dump truckloads of tires into the hole, estimating that thousands had been disposed of in this manner over the years. Mel then digressed into a seemingly random anecdote about the Ellensburg area, describing it as generally strange. He highlighted one particularly odd story about a tree with a whalebone sticking out of it, a bizarre sight that no one could explain. As Mel shared these additional insights, the mystery surrounding the hole deepened, and the audience was once again captivated by the eerie and enigmatic tale of Mel's hole.
So he 100% took the offer.
He took the offer and ran.
It must have been substantial.
Yep, it would have to be, because if you remember, in that last phone call, he had mentioned that there was an offer that came in from a real estate agent, and he didn't seem too keen on it, but he understood that, I probably have to take this, or else the next one, it might be taken by force, so this might be my one and only.
Yeah, well, at that time of the call, he didn't know what the amount was.
No clue.
So he might have not realized how big it actually was.
He may not have.
Until he got there.
Once he got there and he figured it out. Because remember, we're talking late 90s. Wasn't like nowadays. You don't just look at your cell phone and go, oh, I got an email from X, Y, and Z. Like typically you had to drive somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad those days are in the past.
Yeah, me too. I like things a little bit easier.
Yeah. I I obsessively check my bank account just in case, all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be rough if I had to call someone or go somewhere.
Oh, for sure. It's different day and age. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. So is he still getting news from the U.S. about it, or was that just some other stuff that he brought up?
Well, the reason I broke the segment there was really two reasons. There's significantly more to the phone call.
Right.
The reason I stopped here was because he did mention some other things like, hey, there was this guy that was coming and dropping off all these tires and he's been doing it for a long time, yada, yada. I specifically broke at the end of this one so you guys can make a mental note. We've had a few of them now. That old whalebone in the tree.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Although I've seen similar things, so I'm gonna hold judgment on that. So I'll put another pin over here about that kind of thing, because I've seen trees grow around bicycles and
for sure. But this is a whalebone.
All this kind of stuff.
Where'd the whale come from? This is up in the mountains.
Yeah. But there are people living around there.
There are people.
And people collect those and take them home.
As one would do, I would assume. I've never collected a whalebone in my life.
Not me.
I don't know anyone that has whalebones. But I'm in Ohio.
So I guess I should explain this, that many places around here, people have whale bones in their gardens that they've gone to the beach and picked up. Like, my dad's got like a couple spine pieces from a whale in the garden. And,
what?
Yeah, and there's a business, or it's closed down now, but it was called At the Sign of the Whale, that had two big whale ribs crossed on their sign. And
that's very interesting.
At our lighthouse, where they filmed The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers, by the way, they have a full whale skeleton there that you can look at. Like, these things are super common around here.
Oh yeah, here? That sounds like the most absurd thing humanly possible.
That is funny. I never thought about it that way, because we get tourists here and you see them down at the beach hefting this big thing into their trunk, and we just assume that they take them and put them in their gardens like we do, I guess.
Nope, they took it somewhere. They're like, we found a dinosaur bone.
I wonder if that's what they're telling people when they get it home.
Probably.
They're like being right secretive. Oh my God, I found a dinosaur bone. I can't let anyone know.
Man, I was walking on the beach.
I gotta steal this.
What kind of dinosaurs was on the beach?
Oh.
Yeah.
Crap, I just remembered something. Can I go off on a huge tangent on a past episode?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I got an update from something. Remember we did the Oak Island mystery?
Yep.
Well, there's a TV show that goes on about that, and it's very popular. Like, a lot of people watch it. Well, there happens to be a house about, I'd say, 7 or 8 minutes from here on the coast, that has a stone that has the same kind of etchings on it that the stones on Oak Island did. And they put it on the TV show, The Curse of Oak Island. And now this poor old couple that it's on their property have people sneaking down there in the middle of the night. People digging giant holes under it because they think there's treasure under it. All this kind of stuff. And they can't get rid of these people. Like, they're there every night. There's people threatening these old people. Like, they put up fences, they tear them down. People try to pull the stone with their trucks, and their trucks break down, and they show up at like 2 a.m. at this old couple's house, and it's really scaring the heck out of them.
Well, yeah.
But like, this is a huge mystery, and people are now convinced that there might be a treasure buried under it. So a guy had been down there tenting, like, in the woods, so he wouldn't be seen, and he'd been digging under this rock, which is very dangerous, by the way.
I would assume.
And he was really far down in there, and the way they found out is they had got word from someone that people had been snooping around their property again. The old couple went down to see what was going on and almost fell down, like, oh, I don't know, enough to kill you. Almost fell in this hole. But
see, they should have
if
put a
you've
manhole
listened to
cover.
that pest, well,
like Mel did.
they should. Yeah, really, they should. But people would just tear it up with their trucks and stuff. What they need to do is they need to get that stone out of there and put it in a museum or something.
Oh, for sure.
Because there was a guy from the other side of the country that came over, and the old people told him not to do it, and he was threatening them. He's like, I can come back anytime and I can kill you and leave, and no one will ever know. Like, it's just getting wild. So
that's insane.
The way this is tangentially related is I wouldn't be surprised if people involved in this don't want people to know exactly where this hole is.
Oh, yeah. They absolutely don't want anybody to know. Nobody wants anyone to know. The military doesn't want anyone to know. Mel didn't want anyone to know.
Yep. Because no one will leave you alone.
Right. Exactly. It's going to be a constant hot spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet there were people on Art Bell's show all the time trying to figure out where it was. And in the last call you just talked about, he mentioned a nearby town, which probably gave people a lot more clues.
Correct.
On where to find it. But Mel don't live there anymore, so I guess he don't care.
Right. Yeah. Because he's in Australia is what we learned. He went to Australia.
Yeah.
Which was his lifelong dream.
Yeah. Right. Saying he don't live there. He don't own the property. Maybe now's the time he wants people to go find out about it. So he drops the nearby town name. He drops sort of like a description of people who go around it in case someone knows them. Like,
that is true. You know, you would think
maybe
that
he's doing that.
You would think that based on the way I cut that segment up a little bit, but what if I told
you? Is that
you
misleading?
Well, let's check out this next segment and then we'll come back on that.
Mel shared more about the mysterious black beam. It wasn't a one-off occurrence. Others had reported seeing it, though Mel himself never witnessed it. He also added an unusual detail about the military men who stopped him 3 years ago. Despite his past military service and confidence that they were from the Army, their uniforms lacked any identifying information, leaving him unable to specify which army they represented. Mel then recounted what happened following the encounter. The estate agent's offer turned out to be a government proposal to lease his property indefinitely, with a staggering payment of $250,000 per month. After a series of undisclosed conversations, Mel secured an impressive deal. The arrangement allowed him to relocate to Australia with his dogs and various plants, bypassing quarantine regulations, clearly a result of an agreement between both governments. However, Mel had to sign a non-disclosure agreement that covered certain aspects he didn't elaborate on. Mel was instructed to leave his car and wait at a nearby rest stop, where he was picked up and driven to the airport. From there, he flew to San Francisco and then on to Australia. In Australia, he continued his research, using his newfound wealth to build various facilities and becoming deeply involved in rescuing wombats.
I had to
the
put
Wombat
that
King.
I had to put that last part
He's
in there.
the Wombat King.
I just thought that was so funny.
I love it.
As soon as I heard it, I'm like, that has to go in there. Like, I know it doesn't pertain to the story, but that's just too good to not put in there.
I'm so glad you put that in there. Maybe we can title this Mel the Wombat King.
That would be so good. That would be so good.
So I was gobsmacked, I think is the word, to learn how much the offer was.
$250,000.
And not only that, but it's leasing it. Why? Why even?
Indefinitely.
Why not buy it?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Something is... There's only one thing I can think of, is that they need his ongoing service for something.
You would think that, but we'll come back to that.
Or maybe he wouldn't have any reason to keep with the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, if he didn't have the possibility of having his payments stopped.
I would believe that was
So
probably
that's
the
sort of-
closest.
Yeah,
They pay you
because
X amount
he
of
might
money,
sign.
and then they go
Right.
one day they go, maybe I'll just tell Bill over there. Versus if you know your paycheck is coming every single month, but if
Yeah.
you say something, maybe that payment doesn't come through anymore. It's incentive to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what it is, because it would be super hard for them to enforce an NDA in Australia.
Yeah.
I would assume.
I would assume.
I don't know what the relationship between the countries is, but it's hard to enforce that kind of thing across borders.
For sure.
Yeah, but that's just an outrageous amount.
$250,000 per month.
Jeez Louise. And he could skip all the quarantine checks for his magic plants and stuff like that.
Right.
Which that couldn't have been easy unless except for a government organization.
Correct. That's where it becomes tricky, because now you have governments that's making deals behind the scenes, which makes you question,
Yeah.
well, why would they do that? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, what do they have to gain? And it could be as simple as something like a criminal prisoner exchange or something like that.
Could be.
Or, a favor in the future for that.
Could be.
But the other wild thing too is the non-disclosure agreement doesn't cover him talking about any of the things that he's already talked about. Because he's still talking about it.
Well,
but there's something that we don't know about.
He disappeared for 3 years. He didn't talk about it for 3 years.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if he's breaking it now, or if the non-disclosure agreement covers something real crazy that we don't even know about.
It does make you wonder why all of a sudden now the phone conversation's happening. Maybe we've not covered that yet.
No, I can tell by your expression, your smug expression, that you know something that I don't know about this topic.
Yeah, I know a whole bunch about this topic, Mr. Nick.
This must have been a segment I fell asleep on that I don't know.
Well, it's coming. You've not fallen asleep on it yet. It's coming. This is all going to be answered very shortly, Nick. Very, very shortly. One thing before we do go to the next segment, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, they allowed him to go to Australia, which was his dream.
Right.
He was able to take his plants over, which he was pretty excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question becomes, what would there be a benefit in these plants? Was there anything that they just said that it was Native American herbal plants, right? So
I've just been assuming that you're talking about drugs, but I don't know if that's not correct.
Well, what did Native Americans used as herbal plants? The old Snoop Dogg would potentially use some of this, right?
Yeah, like I'd assume like weed, but I was thinking stronger stuff. Like not so much herbal, but like
in which there could be some of that in there too. But he's really been messing with a lot of these plants, and he's found some success with some plant stuff just here in the States. That's why he had this lab that he had on his people was coming to him like, wow, like your stuff is really good. Like it's working really good here.
Does he have an abnormal success?
Well, we don't know because he's some kook out in the middle of the woods with his own lab putting stuff together. So no one really knows his success rate. But now he's in Australia and he's able to bring some of these plants over. Why don't we listen to the next segment? It's really going to talk about two things, which is potentially some of these plants. And the second part might be why he's calling in, which we've not.
Okay, yeah, I am curious about that after all this time.
Yeah, it's very peculiar is what we'll say.
All right. Lay it on me.
Let's see what happens. Well, everybody, I guess I'm the seal-eyed now. Listen, it is what it is. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Nick called me at the very, very, very beginning of the next podcast. His word is seal-eyed. And I guess that's just what I got to deal with. We record these intros, outros, but I said, that's just so good. We got to put it at the very end of this one.
Now they gotta wait a whole week to find out what the heck I'm talking about.
What the heck does it mean?
Let me tell you, it's important. It's important.
It's really important. So you're sitting there and you're going, well, he told us the word. The reason I told you the word is why did he say that? Why did he say that? You're gonna want to find out. You're gonna want to come back to part 2 because trust me. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. What you've heard up to this point in time, that's the most normal it's going to be the entire time.
And you're going to hear that so many times next week.
You are going to hear it a lot next week. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed this very special two-parter. I know we've not done a two-parter in a while. To be honest, we have to add a couple of two-parters. We got to kind of fill this tank back up with all the vacations and stuff we got going on. This one, I've been sitting on this one for a long time because I'm like, man, this is a two-parter. This one's really deep. And I said, this is the perfect time to do this two-parter. But hopefully y'all enjoyed yourself. If you enjoyed yourself, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Also, wherever you listen to your podcast, if you give us that rating, we would definitely appreciate it. Tell all your friends. Tell them, hey, come on down to Mel's Hole.
Not what it sounds like.
Not what it sounds like. Let's hear to that. No shame around here. But until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Bye-bye.